When I was younger, I always thought later would come. Later felt endless. I told myself I would slow down later. I would fix things later. I would say what mattered later. I remember one evening very clearly. I was in my early 40s. I came home tired. Work was heavy back then. Always something to finish. Always something waiting. My wife was sitting at the table. Dinner was already cold. She asked me something simple. I don't even remember what it was now. I remember how I answered. Short, distracted, already somewhere else in my head. She went quiet after that. I didn't notice. I ate. I watched the news. I went to bed thinking I had done enough for one day. Years later, that moment came back to me. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was ordinary. That's what hurts the most. At the time, I believed showing up was enough. I believed being there in the same room counted. I was wrong. What I learned too late is this. Being present is not the same as being nearby. Time doesn't wait for attention. It moves whether you're looking or not. If you're watching this in your 30s or 40s, listen carefully. The small moments are not small. They only look small because you think you'll see them again. I lost many chances that way. Not in one big mistake, but in 1,000 quiet ones. Moments I thought I could repeat later. The warning I want to give you is gentle but serious. Don't trade today for a version of tomorrow that may never arrive. Don't assume people will always be there when you finally slow down. And yet, I want to say this softly, you still have time. That's why I'm telling you this now, because noticing it earlier changes everything. That thought stayed with me. It followed me into the next years of my life, and it led me to another lesson, one that took even longer to accept. After those years passed, life didn't slow down. It only changed shape. The children grew up. The house got quieter. Work became less urgent, but heavier in another way. I remember the day I retired. People shook my hand. They said kind things. They told me I earned my rest. I went home early that afternoon. The sun was still out. For the first time in decades, there was nowhere I had to be. I sat in the living room, just sat there. No phone calls, no deadlines, no one waiting for answers. And that's when it hit me. I didn't know what to do with myself. For so many years, I had tied my worth to being busy, to being needed, to being useful in visible ways. I told myself I was doing it for my family, for security, for the future. But sitting there in that quiet room, I realized something painful. I had used busyness to avoid listening to myself, listening to others. There was a memory that came back to me that day. My son was about 10. He wanted me to watch him fix an old bicycle. He kept calling my name. I kept saying, "In a minute." I never watched him finish. I don't remember what I was doing instead, but I remember the look on his face when he stopped asking. That look stayed with me longer than my career ever did. The lesson took years to settle in. You don't miss life because you don't care. You miss it because you think you're doing something more important. I want to warn you about this, especially if you're watching this while trying to build something. Success can be loud. It can drown out the quiet voices that matter most. I'm not telling you to quit your work. I'm telling you not to disappear inside it. People don't remember how hard you worked. They remember how safe they felt around you, how seen they felt, how heard. I didn't understand that until many of those chances were gone. Conversations that could no longer happen, moments that could not be replayed. That truth was hard, but it wasn't the hardest one. Still, I want you to hear this clearly. If you're still breathing, if the people in your life are still there, you still have time. That realization opened another door for me, one I avoided for most of my life, and walking through it changed how I see everything now. As the years went on, my body slowed down in ways I didn't expect. Small things became hard, bending, walking long distances, sleeping through the night. But what surprised me most was not the physical change. It was how quiet my mind became. When you can't rush anymore, you start noticing things. The way morning light sits on the wall, the sound of someone breathing beside you, the weight of your own thoughts. There is a moment I remember clearly. I was in my late 70s, sitting in a small clinic room, waiting for test results. The doctor spoke calmly, nothing urgent, nothing dramatic. But in that moment, I felt something shift. I realized that time was no longer something ahead of me. It was around me, behind me, and thinning out. On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio. I just listened to the road. And I thought about all the years I spent worrying about money I eventually earned, problems that resolved themselves, arguments that no longer mattered. And I thought about the things I didn't do, the apologies I delayed, the feelings I kept quiet, the love I assumed people already knew. There was one person in particular, a friend from my younger days. We stopped talking over something small, so small I can't even remember what it was now. Years passed, then decades. I always thought I'd reach out later. Later didn't come in time. That's the lesson that stayed with me. Life rarely ends with unfinished work. It ends with unfinished words. If you're watching this and holding something back, a call, a message, an apology, say it while you can. I'm not saying it will fix everything, but silence fixes nothing. I want to gently warn you about pride. It feels like strength when you're young, but it becomes weight when you're old. Letting go earlier would have made my life lighter, softer, more honest. Still, I don't want this to sound hopeless, because even now I find peace in small ways, in honesty, in saying what I feel, in listening without trying to win. If you're in your 30s or 40s and watching this, please hear me. You don't need to rush through your life, and you don't need to carry everything alone. Time is strict, but it is also fair. It gives warnings, quiet ones. That's why I'm telling you this now, because as long as you are here, you still have time. Conclusion, I don't have a big ending to give you. Life never gave me one either. It just kept moving, quietly, one day into the next. At my age, I don't think about success much. I think about peace, about whether I was honest with myself, about whether I said what mattered. Some days I feel proud, other days I feel regret. Most days it's a mix of both. That's how a long life feels. If there is one thing I want to leave you with, it's this. Pay attention to the small moments. They are not small later. Say what you feel sooner. Forgive faster. Listen more than you speak. Don't wait for the right time. It rarely comes dressed the way you expect. I waited too long for many things. I thought I had more years than I did. Still, I'm grateful I learned, grateful I can tell you this. If you're watching this now and you're still building your life, remember this. Time is quiet when it passes. You don't hear it leaving, so live gently, be honest. And don't wait to become the person you already are. That's all I wanted to say.